support teachers. That can be awkward. If you're not used to delegating, or maybe you've never been in I don't want to say a supervisor type position, but a leadership position. It can feel a little weird to say, hey, I kind of feel like I'm doing all the work myself. Can I ask you to please, do check-in? And obviously we'll talk about not wording it that way. But that's a non-example. And then under that category is also effective communication with your team. Any team is going to have frustrations. Any team. Billy Graham and his team is going to have frustrations. So that's not the problem. The problem is, or really the goal is effective communication. So not avoiding maybe potential upsets, but how do we navigate through it? And then the third point is protocol with problem behaviors in the classroom, problems with kids, problems with parents, and even problems with volunteers, as many of you have experienced with your support teachers. And lastly, classroom management tools, calming the craziness. That was actually the biggest point of feedback that we got in the survey. My classroom feels crazy sometimes. It feels like a zoo. How do I manage it? Some of you are, you're just naturally really good at that. Others, if you're like me, you're not naturally good at a lot, so you just have to work really hard, and that is totally okay, because we have each other to kind of pull suggestions from and learn from, so hopefully we can help each other out with that. Next slide, please. What would you do? So I love this part. We're going to get interactive right off the bat. Here come our lovely prizes. Thank you, Christina. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come around and give each table a different scenario. And so as we've kind of outlined what does this first part of the training look like, your table is going to get, and I keep saying hypothetical, but it's actually a real scenario. And you're going to kind of have a few minutes, probably 5 or 6 minutes, turn to each other and discuss if this was really our classroom and you were the lead teacher of it. As a lead teacher, how would you address that issue? So, here we come. And like I said, it'll be about, we'll give you about 5 minutes to troubleshoot that. And I'll walk around now with the scenarios. Would handle that scenario.
Do you have one? Because I have one right now.
Go for it.
Okay. So let's just pretend, those of you in Clubhouse, you'll not know anything of what I'm talking about. Let's pretend that we have a young boy in our classroom environment who is repeatedly getting up and walking around during the Big God story. So you've asked him over several weeks, sorry, I'm going to cough right now. You've asked him in the past several weeks to pay attention, but nothing seems to be working. And you and your team in the room are just at a loss for words now, at a loss for where to go with this boy. Aside from getting up and walking around, he's also continuing to be hurtful to other children and tends to hurt himself, whether it's running into a wall or tripping over an activity. So, poor little boy, what would you do? Talk amongst yourselves. You're going to talk about everything from classroom environment to how to handle parents to involving other volunteers. Just put yourself in the scenario and where would you go back?
Thank you, Rena.
Mike.
Go for it. We want to drown out all the other 3 trainings that are happening on this floor right now.
Really dumb thinking.
That's not even that loud.
Okay.
Put on your chin. That way we can
Be
hear.
even louder.
There you go.
Okay, so as a table, my kind of situation was, if you have that one particular one, in my class, what works for me is kind of not necessarily having like a special spot. If I set a chair up for that particular one in my class, because I have one, then usually they'll like, okay, this is my kind of seat. But other than that, Laura was saying positive reinforcement for those who are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like whoever's sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor right now, right before the Big God story, you're going to get a sticker or a stamp, or that's positive reinforcement. And Dave, he said, because we all know who those kids are every week when they come in. As they come in, kind of remind them, okay, this is what we're going to do throughout the class. Remember what we said? This is what we're gonna do. The end.
I like that, Randy. I like the preemptive strike of remembering the rules. You do that, Lori, in your
Yeah.
classroom?
And then also another one is to,
I'm gonna
we're
touch
talking,
the mic so everyone can fit it.
we were also talking about how you can delegate before you start, that we're looking for 4 special helpers to be the servers when we have snack. So we're looking for, the behaviors that you have to be listening to the Big God story, your hands need to be to yourself, all those things that you put it in a positive way rather than a negative way. You want the kids to look at the positive behaviors and doing that. And then the other one was maybe using one of your support teachers to be in the proximity, not necessarily giving them their undivided attention because that's what they're looking for,
Right.
but to be able to go over and whisper in their ears, I really like the way you're saying, I like the way you have your hands in your lap, because that's going to reinforce what you want rather than getting the negative.
Exactly. And so many of the kids who come to our church, we know that the homes they come from are so diverse too.
Yeah.
We don't know if maybe they're acting out because they're craving positive attention. Maybe they don't ever get that at home. Maybe just telling them what not to do all the time is reinforcing the negativity that they already hear at home. That's a great. Lori is a good teacher in her life, so.
She's
That's
really good.
So that's cheap. That is a really good one. By the way, I didn't announce, but these prize bags, the first one will be given away as a result of the best answer here for this first question.
That's already
Let's see your competitive side. Okay, good. Who wants to take the mic next? Brandy, perfect.
Yeah, Brandy.
Brandy is, she's one of our diehards. She sits in a kindergarten room and 12 o'clock no less. So Brandy, what would you, oh, I'm sorry, the 10, that's right.
I'm the 12 o'clock branch.
I'm, okay.
Yeah, she's a 10 branch.
Brandy, this is my training. 2 Brandies. Okay, Brandy, what would you or your team do in that scenario?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm not totally diehard by myself. It's a team effort. And I wish my husband was here because he and I are like that.
Yeah.
We're co-leaders. So what we do every day is we give them a set of rules before they get Big God story. And then after that, we tell them they have 3 warnings. If we touch their head the first time, that's their first warning. The second time we touch their head, they have to sit by a blue shirt. The third time, we take them outside, and they either have to talk to a coach or potentially we call their parents. And they usually don't like that, so they listen by 1 or 2.
That's a really good one. I like sitting them next to someone, designating a support helper or a support teacher to say, hey, Dave, if so-and-so can't settle down, can you sit with him through the Big God story? That's a really good one.
And I like even that mixed with what someone said here as far as being preemptive and doing that ahead of time is key too, because a lot of what we run into, especially in elementary, is we're standing up here, literally up here, before a sea of 80 faces.
Right.
And the last thing you want to do is hey, Jojo, shh.
Middle of the Big God
exactly.
story. That's
Exactly.
kind of what you were saying, Brandy, that preemptive rules.
Mhm.
Who would like to take the mic next and tell us
I
what
just
you're
have one
teaching?
other thing.
Please, yes.
And the other thing that we do is if it's still not working, we try really hard not to take them outside. We find something else for them to do, like color a page.
Okay.
And that usually works for them, and sometimes other kids want to do it too. And we kind of explain to them, well, they need a little bit of space, or they're having a hard time,
Right.
and that usually helps them stay with the Big God story and not worry about the other kid.
I like that, even addressing the rest of the other kids. That's perfect. Brandy's getting competitive. Who would like to share next what your table would do? Would you like to go on?
Sync
Your
motion.
turn.
Okay, Jeremy. Let's pass the mic to Jeremy.
We kind of took this scenario from a clubhouse perspective, and Katie brought up how they had this scenario, and they have often designated a male leader to kind of befriend this boy and kind of be his buddy, and not look at it as a negative perspective, but totally kind of be his friend and positively reinforce and guide this child. And also, I've used that kind of strategy I mean, they often use it in elementary schools, and that shadow type of person that basically comes alongside, and it's important that that is designated beforehand. And also, I mean, I know sometimes that's not a luxury because we don't have the extra staff, but definitely when it is, they're able to give their attention to this child, and they're able to encourage them and build them up, but then also include them with other kids. Now, that adult is able to be proactive about getting this kid, encouraging this kid to be involving with the other kids, and I've seen that work really well. Also, it gives if for some reason parents did have to get involved, there's things you put in place to say, look, we've tried this, and it's not just a nagging thing to parents. It's, look, we're really trying to do the best for your child and for you guys. And so it really creates that a plan in place, I think. So that's.
Because remember, as volunteers, even it doesn't matter if you're leads or large group leaders, small group leaders, support. We're here to partner with the parents to help them lead their child in growing in Christ. We don't have the pressure, thank the Lord, of being the primary disciples. We're here to communicate with parents.
I love how you included the parents too. I think, especially letting the parents know, this is what we've tried. Do you suggest anything else? That not only does it get a whole different response from the parent, opposed to, hey, we're really having a tough time with so-and-so, we're going to send them out of the classroom now. But it communicates to the parents, we are your church. Stay here, we're walking through this with you. And that's a huge one. Good job, Jeremy's got his A game on tape today.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Wonderful, please.
So this is prior to the child coming in, and obviously you're going to identify, say you've got one child in particular, but then you may have 2 or 3 different children.
Yeah.
So would that mean that you would identify a particular assistant leader or a sub-leader to be that child's quote-unquote chaperone through that time?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, I was responding to the fact that this is a continuous kid, so it's more of this is a recognized kid that comes every week, and so at that point when it's becoming an issue of, like how Christina said, they're hurting kids, they're hurting others, they're not just walking around, but there's a list of problems. I think at that point is when that's recognized by the team. That's when there needs to be an assignment of, hey, can you take on Johnny for this week? But I think also if it's a couple kids, I don't see why that sponsor, that chaperone couldn't kind of do that same thing, but basically they're designated for that assignment. And I've seen it work well where they've taken on a couple kids along with their wing. And so I think it's kind of, as the large group leader, kind of knowing your volunteers and knowing who would be good at that assignment and easily making to where they can take on a couple kids. I've seen it work really well that way. Yeah.
Or perhaps even one that you don't know about that crops up during the service?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. That way they're focused on that during the service. They're automatically focused of, hey, this is my job. And they're kind of, because I've seen in situations where that volunteer might not, the volunteers, there's a problem, but they're not thinking that way. But when I've seen where you've assigned them, hey, could you help me in this area? As soon as they see it, they jump on it. You don't have to say anything from the pulpit or from the stage because they're on it and they're being proactive about it. So, yeah.
Does that answer your question, Noah? That's good. That's really good.
And PS huddles are a great place to do that. And when we're meeting together for that 20 minutes, after we've connected, after we've prayed, if you know that you're going to walk into this situation where, Johnny's coming up, pull aside another leader, a support teacher, a small group leader, before you exit that huddle, and talk with them, because we all know that once we get in our rooms, it's game on, and it's hard to pull someone aside. So huddles are a great place to do that.
And I like how you brought up even designating someone. We're going to talk a little bit more in a bit about almost making your support teachers specialists. People love to feel like they're important, like they're not really dispensable. And a lot of times you'll see, if you've been here for a while, you'll see new volunteers sort of come in your classroom, maybe they don't last. People join a ministry because they really want to feel like they are part of the machine that pushes God's work forward. And so sort of making them from, oh, you're a support teacher, I'm kind of running the show, to you are the check-in specialist. We need you to make parents feel Like, and it sounds silly, but even in, to that extent, like, we want you to make parents feel like we have been waiting for them to get here. We are so happy that their rambunctious little boy is here. And we're happy to take him so they can go sit in service. That person who you communicate that heart of check-in to, they will be your check-in specialist. They will rise to the occasion. So I like how you brought that up too. Any other tables want to give some input? Maybe compete before we get up to Friday. Okay. Well, Christina, what do you think? What I liked about a little more into
Relax, everything's under control.
communicating. I'm sorry, Michelle. As this segment goes a little more into communicating with your team, we'll watch one more clip and we're going to talk about the different dynamics of, well, I really do feel like my support teacher dropped the ball. How do I address that? Or different things. So we'll go through examples, but here is one more how not to when you are expecting something from your support teachers, but you're not exactly demonstrating what you're looking for yourself. So again, sometimes we are expecting something from our support teachers, but we forget, because we're human, like we think, geez, I have asked this person to be on time, but yet we're struggling coming in just after prayer huddle ends, or, I've asked this person to smile a little bit more when they're doing check-in, but yet you don't look too friendly when you're addressing your volunteers. So just a little lesson from Michael Scott. Thank you, Michelle. Next slide, please.
And if I can interject while we get to the next slide. For elementary, it's a little bit different because I know we don't think of ourselves as in charge of a classroom, but as the large group leaders, this is what we're in charge of right here, this environment. So pulling on the expertise and the help and the support of those small group leaders is key, because maybe we're running an anticipate activity and we can't do it just by ourselves. Or maybe, and we'll get to this in our breakout, but maybe if it comes to the gospel message and there's no way that you can respond and lead the gospel huddle at the same time. So it is key to be able to communicate with your support teachers / small group leaders about what you're looking for and what kind of help that you'll need from them as we're going for the big win, which is bringing hope to kids.
And as much as Michael Scott is a non-example, we can take one success secret from him as leaders, which is make it about the relationship. So much of this first part, which is communications with your support team and different dynamics in the classroom, are 100% about the relationships. 100%. It seems crazy, but as we saw in the clip, the last clip with Jan and Michael, unsafe relationships between you and your leads can lead to blame, lack of accountability, and even a lack of respect in your leadership. So what does that look like in real classroom terms? Maybe Christina's my support teacher, and I asked her, oh, Christina, I know you wanted to be in charge of check-in and making sure the rosters are correct, but I've noticed that they're not correct week after week. If you keep doing this, I'm going to keep having to hear from my coach that these aren't correct. Can you pick it up a little bit? She won't exactly respect my leadership if that's my approach. Any approach that is not relationship-based will lead to a lack of ownership on your part too, because then Christina's response, if that's how I'm talking to her, might be,
If you're coming at me like that,
yeah,
like, well, if it's your classroom, then then I'm gone.
bingo.
You don't need me.
You're the lead teacher, you figure it out.
Yep.
And so that's going to lead to them not really wanting to be a part of the team, but instead feeling like, oh, Christina said I'm not doing it right. I have to do check-in for Christina. I have to do a good job for Christina, or she'll jump at me again. So making it about the relationship could look a little differently. Maybe if I notice that my check-in person is not exactly the friendliest toward parents, I don't want to say, we've discussed this before, I don't know what you're not getting. You have to be friendly. We're a church. You're such a jerk. If I approach it that way, my goodness, not only will I be asked to step down, but they won't take ownership. They will resent you. If instead your approach is relationship-based and looks more like this, hey, Christina, I'm Look at that face already. How could I be mean? Hey, Christina. I noticed that you seem a little rough around the edges during check-in. Are you doing okay? I know things have been a little tough between you and your mailman and
About my mailman.
I know he's a bit irate, and I just want to check in with you because that's not like you, and I know that's not who you are. What's going on? Do you want to stay after and we can pray a little bit or maybe talk?
Bingo. Yeah, that was a buzz term that has a lot of heart to it that we use around the Rock Church a lot is people first, because it is about the people versus
The situation.
yeah, or the problem. A lot of times, I'm very, let's figure this out, get it done. And so my team around me is a great reminder, or they're great reminders to me to put people first. Because I think a lot of us in that situation, I mean, a lot of us are leaders, and we can tend to just try to fix the problem, versus let's take time and dig underneath and be available for this person who may have some stuff going on. You know, we, aside from the huddles, that's only 20 minutes that we get to connect with each other, really. But it's a good 20 minutes. But other than that, how much do we really know our support team?
And we're going to get, there's actually a whole section on that we're going to go into, I think it's part 2, that says knowing your team and encouraging your team. Of course, we have another great clip for that one later. But you might be thinking, okay, I get that, but what about the really important stuff that is just not getting done? What about a child keeps getting bruised in our classroom? That is a big no-no, and it's not being reported. This support teacher is not bringing it to my attention, so the mom's picking the child up. She's irate. She's understandably angry. He has a bruise on his arm. No one knows how it got there. Situations that, of course, are more serious, but we're saying use the relationship approach. Well, can that still apply? It can. If it's a situation that needs to be taken seriously, you can absolutely feel free to initiate the discussion, but then that's why we're here. Even, I know your amazing coaches have stepped up so much to be able to be available and say, you know, if you need to talk, or, you know, whether it's we're not there that day or we're pulled in a different direction, coaches are ready and available. And even to be able to come to us, whether it's coaches, myself, patients, and say, I'm a little uncomfortable because I know this is a no-no. It's a red flag. This child keeps getting hurt. So I know you need to address it. And we will. We absolutely will. But on your end, being able to say to that person in a relational way, you know, I noticed that Bailey keeps getting bruised. And I know that her mom is not okay with that. Of course, I mean, I know you're not okay with that. You joined children's ministry because you want to love and protect kids. I'm trying to think of a way that we can make sure these things get documented the way they should, and that we're supervising Bailey in a more careful way. What do you think? And inviting them in instead of, I'm coming down on you, I'm the lead teacher, you better not mess up my classroom. And like I said, where it's a more serious situation, that's why we're here. Bring us into the conversation. It's not like you're telling the principal on each other, but you might even say, you know, I know just because that's something Elena keeps talking about, or Christina, or whatever area you're in, let's bring her into the conversation just to protect you and make sure that there's nothing from weeks past that we've missed. I know she'll be able to help. So you're approaching as someone who's coming alongside them instead of, you really cannot be doing this. Let me take care of all that, and I promise I won't approach it like that either. But I can get that point across, and you can still be the person who's alongside them, like I said, instead of kind of preaching down on them. Next slide, please. Does that make sense? Okay. So delegating to your supports, why do it? Well, as you can see with Dwight in his picture, he's pretty self-confident. Delegating boosts their morale. When you give someone a job to do and say, Brandy, I know I can only trust this with you, would you be able to prep my slides for the training? to her, she's like, wow, that's a pretty big responsibility. That's a training that you're doing in front of a group of people. Okay, thank you for trusting that to me. It grows spiritual gifts. Growing spiritual gifts is one of the biggies. If there is, I'd say 5 top reasons that people leave ministries, it's because it's just not the fit. They're not being allowed to use their spiritual gifts. And whatever is not being fed dies, right? And that's the opposite of what we want to do. We want to encourage people in their God-given calling. So being able to say, I noticed that you are really good at encouraging, Donna. Would you like to be our greeter and check-in? I couldn't think of anyone who'd be better for it than you. And her being able to take free reign, yeah, if it's all me, can I wear a silly hat when I do it? Can I own it? Can I give out stickers to kids when I check in? Can I, whatever the case is, and me giving her the freedom to say, go for it, this is your thing. I totally trust you.